Hello everybody, this is Martin Palikarski from AthenaStudies. I'm a second year student, and for the following weeks we are going to start off with a series of knowledge clips that are going to be helping you with the writing assignments you have in the course Principles of Economics and Business 1. Every week, my videos are going to have very similar structure. Namely, we're going to start off always with some writing tips. Today, we're going to discuss APA format basics, and next week we're going to talk more about APA, especially referencing, which is crucial for all of your academic assignments. And then we are going, of course, to talk about predominantly on the writing assignment you have for this week, which is our Adam Smith's work, The Wealth of Nations. Now, as I already said, we're going to start with some writing tips in the APA format. And today we're going to talk mainly about layout, because layout is extremely important, and actually there may be occasions in which tutors would not even want to check your work if the layout is wrong. So the first thing you have to do is use Times New Roman, changing the style of your text. If you're using Word, usually the default text is Calibri. If you're using Google Docs, the default text is going to be Arial. So always be sure to change it to Times New Roman. Then the font you need to be using is 11, usually that's the default size, so nothing very concerning, but in case it is different on your laptop, be sure to use the icon to the right in order to help yourself with changing the font size. Then the line spacing, this is very important, should be 1.5, and you can do it again using this icon. And then something that's very important is that you indent every time you start a new paragraph, and you can do this either with the icon to the right or by pressing tab on your keyboard. And something that I have to mention is that the indentation occurs after your first paragraph of the essay, which means that your introduction is going to start without any indentation, and then when you go to the first body paragraph you will need to indent every following paragraph. Then you need to make up a creative title that's linked to the central question of your essay. And the title needs to be a bit bigger with font 12 and of course bolded so that it stands out. And what's important for the title is that it should be concise, short, not repeating the research question, and in any means containing the research question as well. So it should basically be a hint towards how and what your essay is going to discuss. And then after that you would need to add your names and the UvA ID below the title. Something else is to always add the page number. This is how you can add the page number if you're using Word. And then finally, the last thing that you need to know for the layout of the APA format is that you do not justify your paragraphs. So keep the formatting the way it is. And here you can see an example of actually how your paper should look like. So in the very beginning here you have the title, which is a bit bigger and it's in bold, then that's my name, and then here you have the UvA ID, which is followed by the introduction. There is no spacing, so you should always remove the spacing between paragraphs. You should not have it. So you have introduction, then you have body paragraph, here you see the indentation, and then body paragraph 2. So now let's move on to Adam Smith. So we're going to briefly discuss what are the main topics of his work and what are the main themes of his work, so that it's going to be easier for you when you write your essay and when you read his work to identify these things through his words. So the first things that are very positive, so this basically can be used as pros toward in your essay. So firstly, he says that trade is extremely important. So people should be exchanging materials in order for economies to flourish. Then, for the economical benefit of everybody, division of labor should also be established, which means that everybody should know their work. Then specialization of tasks is also extremely important, that actually one task can be divided into small things. So let's say that the creation of a t-shirt would be divided into knitting, collecting the materials, and everybody is going to have their own job so that time is not spent inefficiently. Because of that, of course, productivity growth is going to be fostered. And finally, from the productivity growth, you will get to wealth. So by establishing trade and the division of labor, because back then when he wrote his work, these things were not common. Of course, he wrote at a time which was different from now. So he was the founder of today's economics, basically. And then two limitations of the way he thinks and the way he establishes his ideas is that because the work is so repetitive and boring because of the specialization, actually there may be some sort of work alienation. And so basically people get demotivated from what they're working because it's always the same and there is nothing different. And finally, there is reduced labor mobility and bargaining power, which means that since people have to be always at the same time and they cannot be going anywhere else, there is reduced mobility, so they cannot do anything but do the thing they're specializing in. And then three main themes that would be very important for your essay. The first one is learning on job. So it's increasing the dexterity of every workman. And basically this means that the more you work something and the more you specialize in it, the better you become in it and the more you actually have knowledge about it. Then switching costs. It's saving of time passing between species of work. So the switching costs are always something that you will be discussing during the course, and it also somewhat deals with opportunity costs. So it's just about focusing somewhere and not spending the time elsewhere, so that switching from one thing to another thing, with that you do not lose any time. And finally, of course, research and development. So the invention of machines facilitated labor, because at first, since there was this specialization of tasks, this led to the invention of machines, and then every machine could basically do something that was very niche, and that's what led to the facilitation of labor. So now let's look more precisely into what your writing assignment is about. So that's what the prompt of your assignment. I'm going to read it so we go through it in detail. Adam Smith, a Scotchman, as an inhabitant of Great Britain, was a keen observer of the island's economic and other development. His theory of the creation of the wealth of nations rested firmly on trade. How do you think would Smith have perceived the recent Brexit? So here you see that actually the focus of your essay is going to be Brexit and how his ideas can be applied to today's world. Its negative effects, so negative effects is a focus. We have it in the prompt, so we should actually include in the essay what are the negative effects of Brexit. Its negative effects on trade probably would have concerned Smith greatly, don't you think? What effects may have made the distancing of Britain from the European Union, for example, in the form of trade barrier, have an overall production surplus, you think? So overall production surplus is very important as well. In your essay, you will need to discuss how actually production may differ before and after Brexit. Who do you think would be affected most by those negative effects of the Brexit? How do the effects of a trade barrier affect the production surplus of Great Britain and the European Union? Will Britain be affected most, or the European Union? Do you have a sense of the potential side of such effects? When you see in a prompt that there is something potential, this means that you need to evaluate the extent to which something is occurring. What are the effects of the possibility of large corporations moving their headquarters? What about people moving? So here you basically see how actually trade has been affected by the fact there is Brexit. And the first thing you do when you create an assignment, when you start writing, is basically make up a thesis statement that evaluates the extent to which Adam Smith's ideas hold true in today's world. And that's an example thesis. Of course, do not copy it because you may be caught for plagiarism, but you can see how actually from this prompt you can go more concrete into writing an essay. So countries can benefit from other world markets. However, as the UK leaves the EU, Adam Smith's ideas hold no longer true. This essay will examine to what extent Brexit would harm the UK and the EU. When you have the extent in your thesis, you actually provide the reader information that you will discuss both positive and negative sides, which is crucial when you're writing your essay. So then you need to make up at least two contrasting body paragraphs that would represent this extent that we just talked about. And two examples may be the UK would not be able to import as much as it used to due to the decrease of its market extent. And then the other side would be the EU would not be able to rely on the UK resources anymore. So here actually the two contrasting body paragraphs are that one is from the side of the UK, the other one is from the side of the EU. And of course you would need to do some research, use some academic articles in order to make your paper valid and relevant for the prompt. Thank you very much for watching. In this video we saw how to properly use the basics of APA, what Adam Smith's main ideas are, and how to use literature to produce academic texts. Thank you very much and see you next week when we're going to talk about Hayek.